All right, we're back. We are back. We are Grok Talk. Thanks to Guy and Jane for filling in our first legislative segment. We're going to move forward to our next legislative segment. We have some gentlemen we love to have in because there's so much stuff to talk about, and they're up in Concord, and they know what the hell's going on. And Kirk McNeil and Kevin Bloom are with us. Good morning, Vietnam. Good morning. How you guys doing?
All right, guys, for the camera, I need you guys to shift logical right a little bit because, Kevin, your head is kind of hidden by his.
I kind of like it that way.
You need to go.
This
is a video podcast. No hiding.
Just back up a little bit more.
And Steve, you come this way. I feel like the stage director at a big TV studio. Come on, move over. That's it.
This is where I have to be. You change your camera. I need to be comfortable. I got to run
Mom,
the show.
Mom, he's touching me.
Mom.
Tell him to get back on his side of the seat.
All right, so
This is not Joe Biden.
Can we start out with the appeal for if one of our brave listeners would like to, we're going to call it sponsor a microphone. Do it for Granite Grok, and if somebody would just do that, someone would really appreciate that.
Sponsor a microphone so we can have another person talking.
Yes.
Because it's Grok Talk.
Exactly.
Talk.
In all seriousness, how much does a microphone run? For
Those headsets go about $200 a piece, and what we will end up doing is I have another board because we've already filled this. The newest board, we're already full again. Yeah. So I will lash the two of them together, and that way we can have 12 more.
Yeah,
right.
Well.
So you need about $200 plus another $10 for cables.
I got the cables.
You got the cables.
Have I got cables?
7 of you guys out there listening, $30 a piece. We're done. Make it happen.
I used to have extra money, but somebody jaspered me out of it.
Jaspered you out of it.
That's a new term that I've heard going around.
Jaspered you.
It seems to be synonymous with unprivileged sexual contact.
I thought that was Biden.
You could say that, no, he's just not, that's abidening maybe, but, and abides, no, that's not going to work because that's too good a term.
Well, that's where you get to.
Your wallet got Biden, right? It was groped?
It was just, no, when you're jaspered, it's something completely different, like
That's
what
where you
happens
get
to you at the used car lot.
All these bills
sometimes.
that he's trying to get retained.
Yeah.
He's just biding his time to jasper us on them.
There you go. I like that.
There you go. If you missed it, Conan O'Brien posted it this morning, gave his daughter the talk. In a tweet, he said, just gave my daughter the talk, where I explained that one day Joe Biden might place his hands on her shoulders. So let's talk about, we've got a list. The asset forfeiture reform bill was up. That got retained. Similar topic from previous segment.
That was fun because as soon as the committee hearing began, the committee chair said, we're going to be retaining this.
That's much of a discussion.
And had said it the week before, and we're happy that so we had been told that, in fact, only 2 people were going to be allowed to speak. And we had Russ Caswell came up, who, of course, owned the motel that was seized in asset forfeiture. Big case in Massachusetts.
Oh, yes, Tewksbury.
Institute for Justice, got involved. And guy couldn't have possibly paid his legal bills. Even when they got in, he had already spent $100,000. And he had to take out a loan to do that. Or he would have gotten
I think this
back.
is the important thing in this is a mess. Most people, I didn't know a lot about asset forfeiture until I met you and you came on the show and we talked about it. Now, I assume, even though I'm more informed than most people, obviously there's still things I haven't got a clue about politically and the way the law works and what happens in the real world. Most people have no clue about asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture or criminal asset forfeiture. They might know, that drug dealer with the car and the boat and the house had all his stuff taken away when he went to jail. And they're like, that's good. But they don't realize, I was reading on Facebook, most of the time it's just regular folks who get their stuff taken by the cops and are never charged with anything.
That's correct. 97% of the people that undergo the civil asset forfeiture never fight it, because the average amount, and we don't have stats from everywhere. I want to make this clear. New Hampshire, the police departments are not required to report, and they don't. And anything you heard to the contrary from the Department of Safety or anything else, that is not true. They gave a couple of numbers. They were all over the place. Once they said 50,000, and once they said 200,000, and then they dropped back to 140, and then they said they needed the money to buy guns. Okay, and the federal stats, they are obliged to report those. That's $1.5 million from New Hampshire. But the stats that we have are from Minnesota, and they show the average forfeiture rate there is $1,400. With again the main people, it costs $2,000 to retain an attorney. You know,
Right.
Who's going to spend $2,000 to maybe get back?
It's a
$1,400?
crazy thing where essentially what's being said in civil asset forfeiture is your stuff might have committed a crime.
Right.
But in criminal asset forfeiture, it's saying that you committed the crime. And all this bill is trying to do is to say, before you can actually forfeit the assets, you need to get a conviction for the individual who is involved in
And
the
I think,
activity.
and I think a lot of people would agree with that. If you, like, Kevin, your example, drug dealer, and they've got all this fancy stuff because of their drug dealing. Yeah,
And
snatch all that stuff. And try to make amends. I don't think people have a problem with that, but if I had $10,000 and I missed a stop sign or I was going 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, and they decide you're guilty, give us that cash, and I'm out. Most people go, what the heck?
Actually, you know who needs that drug dealer stuff? This lady.
You got Obama phone?
Yes, everybody in Cleveland loves minority get Obama phone.
Well, I
Yeah.
think there was a friend of ours who's doing some work on our brewery who testified in this hearing, and I think it was a perfect example. He's a contractor. He's got a van that is full of tools and full of stuff that he needs to do or he needs to make his living. He also, as many contractors do, occasionally gets paid in cash. He could have an employee who maybe smokes a little weed on his lunch break or something like that.
In his
And
van.
In his van or near his van,
Well, that's true, too.
right?
Just in his employ, that's all.
Just in his employ. Somewhere, somebody associated with that van and his business. And if that individual were to get caught, then he could potentially have his van and his cash and all of his tools and everything seized under civil asset forfeiture, and then he would basically have to go prove that his stuff and his cash was innocent of committing a crime.
People, you could say that again 100 different times. He has to prove it, not the police.
Exactly.
He has to prove it.
Exactly.
I actually started writing a post when I was emailing you back and forth, and you connected me with that Facebook. I started framing out a post, and the theme of the post is something to the effect of, this is like the playground bully who takes your lunch money, only he has the force of law behind him. You can't. He can come up, punch you, take your cash, and you can't do a damn thing.
Right. And it's interesting to hear the Department of Safety and the Department of Justice come out against this bill, particularly when you look. I don't think we have as big a problem with this in New Hampshire as places like Missouri, for example, or New York, where people really are looking at the police force as an armed gang. And it amazes me that the police here in New Hampshire and the law enforcement supporters here in New Hampshire don't understand that when you have someone who is capable, under banner of law, of bullying people in the way that civil asset forfeiture allows them to bully people, that it creates disrespect for the police department. If you want people to respect law enforcement needs to follow criminal procedures and be respectable.
They need to act responsible
Right.
or respectful. The thing about this whole issue is that drives me crazy is that they're always saying, well, we need to be able to buy guns. We need to buy vests. We need to buy vehicles. We need to do this and this and this. It's like, right. So why aren't you going to your town fathers, your select boards, your budget committees, and what have you, and say, if the need is really that great, then why aren't you making the case for it there? Same thing at the state level. Why aren't you going to the legislators and saying, we need a bigger budget? And why are you defending? Yeah,
showing up to testify against gun rights in the legislature with their uniforms on?
Yeah,
and that's probably done more to. I can't figure it out why law enforcement really seems to want to take off the gun owners, and that is kind of a tangent. But why are they? Why are we paying them to show up and testify against citizen legislation?
progressivism. Man should serve the state.
No doubt.
This is, I don't know, maybe we need to just frame this differently. maybe the mob has to get in on some of this action. When they go get protection money or they shake somebody down, they should call it civil asset forfeiture. That's what
There's
they should
an
do.
idea.
Because that's what it is, right?
Really,
Indeed.
it's fairly uncivil asset forfeiture.
Yeah.
but-
I would call it uncivil, and at some point, I would say, you know what? You need to defend yourself against that robber who's inappropriately wearing a uniform.
Well, they do call him Mike, even though he doesn't have one. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about some more legislation because there's so much to talk about. Stay tuned. This is Grok Talk. I'm Steve, here with Kevin and Kirk and Mike and Skip. We'll be right back.